We're here. We're live. Cornell Thomas. Was we actually just vibing to that intro? I think we were.
Yeah, I was just dancing.
Why not? Welcome to the Right Here, Right Now show. One of my best friends on this planet, Cornell Thomas. How are you doing, my friend?
Thank you, brother. Thank you so much for having me, my friend. The color's going to keep going in and out, so I'm going to go from black to like Dominican to back to black again. So just so you know.
Intersectionality right there, man.
Yeah.
How are you doing? Your morning, my afternoon. How's your day started?
Phenomenal. I just walked my son to the bus stop after we had a sword fight with these foam things. So we had a sword fight first. It was as soon as I wake up, it's on site. My kids attack me. So got my workout in, beating up my kids, my 7 and 5-year-old. Then I walked them to the bus stop, and then my daughter Melissa just took her to school, and now I'm with my one of my best buds in the whole entire planet, Garry Turner, the Garry Turner, as we like to say in New Jersey.
First thing first, right? Before we get into like what's on your heart and mind right here, right now, in this moment, I want to know: did the great Tina Thomas put super in between your first and second name today?
She did. She said, Cornell, she goes, I know none of the boys in your family have a middle name, but she goes, you're talking to your buddy Garry, you damn better put super in there. And I said, you're right, Mom. Why wouldn't I not? I was going to put MF Thomas, but I just thought it'd be a little bit too much for this early in the morning.
Oh, mate, it's always good to spend time with you. So again, thanks for joining me, mate. Like this show, as you know, it is literally called Right Here, Right Now. And I think what I was looking to try and achieve with this is we all can get so stuck in the idea of what perfection is, or actually this particular person's view of what right is. And what I really wanted to do with this platform is just explore, like, in the moment, right here, right now, what's on our heart and mind. Like, it changes, but for you, right here, right now, what's on your heart and mind, Cornell, today?
There's a couple things. One of the biggest things right now, Garry, is I've had an extremely global perspective on things ever since I started traveling in 2015. It's not just my country and the things that are going on in my country. I'm really paying attention because I have friends in all these different parts, these different pockets of the globe, of what's going on globally and why it seems that we don't talk about it enough. And I mean, if you pick the problems of the world, you can talk about it every single day, every single second of your life, and never enjoy your life because you'd be like, I can't believe this is happening in Palestine. I can't believe this is happening in Africa. I can't believe this is happening everywhere. But I think the conversations that we do have, we have to do better with them. Like, we have to get better, right? In terms of global conversations, what the conversations that polarize the planet. I'll be honest with you, and just excuse my French, I don't give a shit about the Kardashians. I just don't. Like, I don't care who they're dating. I care what they wore. I don't care anything about the celebrity nonsense. And if you go to the things that are trending, 90% of them is celebrity based. 90% is like, this person's dating this person and that person's dating this person. And in my mind, it's like, there's so many other things that we can address and have conversations about as a society of human beings, right? Like, not black human beings or white human beings or males or women or whatever, but like, just as human beings. It doesn't mean that all our conversations have to be serious. Me and you joke around all the time, but we can actually sit down and have real conversations. And I think that when celebrity nonsense and divisive, agendas kind of dominate what's trending, it's really like what's trending in the world, right? Like, right now, the new thing that's trending is these two basketball players that are going into this beef, this war of words back and forth. And it's like, well, why is this trending? Because these are two people that are having an argument, right? There's tens of thousands of people that died yesterday. Like, why is that trending? Like, there's lots of problems on the world. Like, I just want to start having better conversations, not saying everything has to be serious. If you know me at all, like, my whole entire life is levity. Like, I joke around all the time, but it's like, I can also sit back and say, wow, why don't we talk about what's going on in Palestine right now? Let's talk about some of these things. Let's have these deeper conversations. So I think that's where I am right now. And then I just had this conversation with my wife today. I said, if I didn't do what I do right now, if I didn't post quotes that people say, I really needed this today, or I needed to hear your voice today, I would be off social media completely, 150%. 150%. And if you see me in social media, like, oh, no way, you love, like, I love the interaction. I love connecting with people all over the world. I would love to find a platform and a way to do that without being engulfed in the next new thing that everybody's jumping on, right? And like the next new thing that we're gonna have the cool kids jump on, and then blah 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 blah. It's all this clout chasing, and like it's so boring to me. Like it's hard for me to go on social media sometimes. Like people invite me to Clubhouse or they invite me to stuff, and it's tough because I'm like, cool, but it ends up being, unless I'm in a Garry Turner room, or I guess I'm in a room where someone that's like, we're having actual conversations, it becomes the same thing. I feel like I'm going down this repetitive cycle of the same thing, right? People letting you know how smart they are, or how wholesome they are, or how whatever they are. And I'm just bored with it. So it's like, these are the two things that are kind of, I woke up thinking about today. It's like, man, I wish, maybe I'll create a way to engage with people where you don't have the nonsense, you don't have the noise. Maybe I'll create a way to engage with people where you can meet people from different parts of the planet and not have all the white noise around it, right? Like just make it pure conversation, make it pure, like, oh, Gary's from England, Cornell's from here. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about something. Like, what's on your mind? What are your interests? Let's, like, I don't know. That's what I'm thinking about now.
I just love, like, and by the way, I'm pretty sure this isn't just this morning. Like, yeah, I love how much of a thinker that you are. But do you know something? What I love, though, about what you've just said, personally, is that you're an action taker, though, as well. And I've been guilty in years gone by of being in that cloud chasing element. I'm very evangelical. Like, when I believe in something, as you know, I go all in on it. And that can be seen to be negative sometimes, like, oh, Gary's evangelical. Whereas I just see it as being curious. And I think people confuse sometimes curiosity with, like, I don't know, a myopic focus on like the next thing. It's like, no. If we stay curious, like we actually open up, we don't close down. And it feels like at the moment we generally value the closing down over the opening up.
Yeah. And the way you present yourself, though, Gary, and I'm not just saying this because you're one of my best buds, I'm just saying this because it's honest. The way you present yourself, you never present yourself as someone that is preaching to a choir or preaching to a massive people, right? Like you never get on your high horse, ever. You always approach it like a conversation between two equal beings talking about whatever the topic is. And I think if you can come about it that way, come about it in a pure way of curiosity, in a pure way of, man, what are your perspectives? Like, what are you thinking? Like if that purity, I think that's the beauty that comes out from it. But you have people that they're so used to, setting you up to sell their program or setting you up to sell whatever or sell themselves, or, I don't have enough followers on blah, 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 where it seems like they're talking to you like you're not smart enough to comprehend it. So I'm going to tell you how broken you are and how dumb you are. And I'm just so smart. I can tell you, like, these are things that you should be doing in your life right now, regardless of your situation, right? Let me just put a blanket thing out there because everybody has the same, I guess, situation, the same life and same problems or whatever. So it's like, when I hear people like you talk on social media, Gary, I'm just like, okay, yeah, I get it. Like, I want to join that conversation. Like, I think of more of a dinner table than a long table where someone's on that side and someone's on that side, like nights of the round table where it's so big you can't have the conversation. I think of more of an intimate dinner table conversation when you talk. And I think that's the way, that's true feel of, like, people, and like wanting to, like, you're always like, man, how do you feel about this? Like, what do you think about this? You're always putting it on the people that you're talking to. So I think the way you approach it is beautiful. And I wish more people did it that way.
No, it's really kind of you, mate. And I think I never used to approach it that way. I used to be so in judgment, to be honest, even until probably a few years ago. And like, how can I say that so clearly? Because I remember so clearly before we actually met, we had a great time at Ignite. I remember clearly that as long as I'm in my own head, not believing I'm good enough, believing I need to dominate, I need to get onto the next rung of the ladder. If I'm in here, up here, I can't be there for you as Cornell. And I don't think we're having that conversation enough, that if we don't do the inner work, like, nothing changes on the outside, ever. Yeah. And that's been my lived experience anyway.
Yeah, and it's not selfish, right? It's not selfish to turn into a hermit for a little bit and work on yourself. There's nothing selfish about that. But we're so used to, as helpers and action takers, we're so used to helping everybody. And then when you're not there to help them in that specific hour or minute, then, oh, wow, this person's changed or blah, blah, blah. I mean, look at the path that you're going from just a couple of years that I've known you, the things that you're doing, right? Like, you still have your job here, but yet you have this whole thing that's growing, that you've been growing. So there's probably tons of people that are around you like, hey man, Gary's a little bit different. He's not like he was the Gary 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Like, he's evolving, right? Like, he's changing. And that's something that I wish people would do a little bit more. It's like, man, it's okay. Like, don't be upset because you get a text message saying, oh, where have you been? Oh, would you change? Those are cool text messages for me, because it means that, like, I'm really working on me, like working on myself, working on growing myself. I'm the furthest thing from a finished product on the planet, right? So it's like, I need to do that self-discovery to figure out, like, who the hell I am and how do I become better every day.
And how's that been for you? Because, like, you're an entrepreneur, and I want to really invite anybody that watches this either today live or coming back. Cornell's written a couple of books. He's just a motivational speaker, does some really great work. But, like, what's some of your bigger learning experiences been for people? Because on the one hand, to those that don't know, you might be thinking, wow, these are really big, bold statements from this guy. Amazing. Like, what's the fuel for Cornell? Like, what's sort of fed into this, your way of being? What's some of your lived experiences that have really sort of shaped who you are today? Would be really interesting.
Well, I don't know if we've had this conversation, Gary. And we've talked about a lot of stuff, but I've always felt different growing up. Always. I've always felt that there's something different about me. And I never verbalized that to anybody. I just kind of kept it to myself. It's like me having a secret, right? Like, I've always looked at the planet a little bit different than I think most people, even when it came to religion and things like that. Like, my mom is a Jehovah's Witness. She's been, since I've been born. I got out of that religion when I was a sophomore, junior. And I had all these questions, like, Mom, I love you. You're the most important thing in my life. But I have all these questions. And a lot of times when you get in religions and, all sorts of stuff, you don't ask questions, right? Especially as a child. You just, these are the answers and shut up and, like, just go along with it. But I've always questioned. And as I started to get older, I started to question, like, my powers. Okay, like, well, why am I actually here? Because I started to see in life that it wasn't why I thought, right? Like, I was convinced that putting a round ball through a circle hole, right, at 10 feet up, I was convinced, like, that was it. And that was my whole entire world. And what I started to realize as I got older is that pursuit has prepared me in life for so many things. So if you look at it, people are like, oh, Cornell, you just fell short. I didn't fall short, because that pursuit of basketball, that those thousands of hours of solitude and just going after just one thing has prepared me, work ethic wise, mindset wise, toughness wise, resilience wise. It's prepared me for, like, when I'm going after what I'm going after now, like when a door closes or something, like, I've been through it already, right? So, like, I started seeing myself after basketball gravitate towards things that were hard. And I started gravitating towards those things on purpose. Like, I started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I started, trying to learn different things. Let me learn a different language. Let me try to play guitar. Let me start running. I started doing these things that were hard. And I was like, man, I think it's just been this test for me, like, to test myself and test where I'm at. Okay, like, what are you made of? Like, what do you got? Like, what are your powers? What can you do? And I started speaking 8-9 years ago. I was saying to myself, I'm like, 2015, I'm like, I can't believe that I'm in England. I can't believe I'm in the UK right now. And I never had the means to travel, never left the country. And I'm in the UK speaking. Like, this is nuts, right? So I'm like, well, what else is possible? Like that, I always ask myself that question. Like, when you accomplish something, enjoy it, sit in it, because I used to never do that. But then ask yourself, well, what else is possible? And I start realizing as I'm getting older, Gary, is that there really are no limitations. Like, there's no limitations. And, like, everything that I went through that has been the punch in the mouth in life has prepared me for the next punch and the next punch and the next punch. So that punch doesn't drop me. It may stagger or wobble me, but I can keep going forward. And when I started pouring my life and opening my life to people, and I started saying like, okay, my words are helping people, right? Like as I'm, doing a live or I'm writing a blog or whatever it is, one of my books, whatever, it's starting to help people. Then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to pour myself into that thing because I have a feeling, even more than basketball, a feeling I've never felt before. Like when I open my heart to people, this is an unfamiliar feeling. Like it's a love, and it's almost like a heart recognition. Like I can see like our energy, I can see it. Like when I speak, I can see it, right? Like I can see it from the other person. Like I can, how they're looking at me when I'm talking, when we're interacting after a talk. When I message them, when they message me, I message them right back. I was like, hey, what's up? Like the excitement I see in like high school kids' eyes when we're just having a conversation. I'm like, bro, this is different. And it's like if I thought that I was just limited to a basketball court, I never would have said like, well, what else is possible? Like, what else is possible? So I'm always just chasing that, like, well, what's next? Like, what's possible? Like, okay, you went to Dubai and Saudi Arabia and blah, blah, blah. There's so much more of the world for you to go and see. There's so much more for you to go and do, right? How many people can you help? Like really, truly help. And not, all the time have to have a camera saying, I'm helping my neighbor Pete, do his flowers today. Like, right, Pete? Aren't I a great person? He sure is. There you go, Pete. And then walk away. I'm saying all that work that we do where it's not on camera. Not saying that you can't video it. I think some of that stuff is great. I think sometimes it goes viral and people want to help more. I think it's contagious. But like, I want to do the stuff in the trenches. Like I'm a soldier as well. I want to do stuff in the trenches. I want to go to my, where I'm from in the city and go to my father's park and clean it up, and build new programs for kids. Like these are all the things that are just happening as I live life and as I experience. So very long-winded answer to your question, but that I'm just, like you said, when you talk about curiosity, Garry, I've always been that way. I've always been curious about not just the world, but myself. Like, what else can you do, dude? Like, what else can you do? And when you ask yourself that question, right, you really put yourself to the flame. Like, okay, I gotta test the waters now. Like, I don't want to be in a pond. I want to be in the biggest ocean ever, and I still want to be able to survive in that ocean. So that's what I wake up like thinking about every day. It consumes my mind.
I love it. And it's two brilliant questions. I've got that echo back again, which is really annoying. I'm going to work this out one day. Two what questions you asked. So one of them was, what is possible? How often do we actually ask that? And I work in a corporate role. Some of the people watching us now work in corporate, some will be independent. How often do we actually stop and ask that question? Particularly as we become adults, what is possible? Not what do I do to hit the next quarter's numbers, or what do I do to try and manipulate the other human being? Like, what is possible collectively? I just think it's a brilliant question. I invite anyone that's watching us or watches back, like, how would you answer that question today? What is possible? 3 really simple words.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like, again, this is part of what are you feeding yourself mentally, spiritually? What are you digesting every day? Because if you're digesting news programming, if you're digesting just TV, if you're digesting the things that tell you that, Garry, because you look a certain way, because you're from a certain demographic, you can only do this, right? Society has a great way of putting ceilings on people. They've been doing it since the beginning of time. If you look this way, you can only go here. If you're this type of gender, you can only go this way. If you're from this background, you can only go here. And if you believe it, then society, the powers that be, win. I've never believed that. Like growing up without a father, growing up without any money, like I never believed that I still couldn't win. I always tell people, it's like, it doesn't matter the hand you're played. It matters how you play them, right? Like, how do you play those bad cards? Sometimes we get crappy cards, and sometimes it's not our fault, right? We just get crappy cards. It's like, how do you play them, right? You can either fold them or you can focus, and say, okay, well, how do I play them better? So, yeah, I just, these type of conversations this is what like lifts me up and fills me up, because I know there are people, Garry, that follow you, that you're friends with, that are in your circle, that think this way, that are asking that question, like, what's possible? I know I've kept people in my life that are like they're thinking this way. And I think if we start thinking that way collectively, right, as human beings, then we can start saying, well, what's possible for the planet? Like, what's possible for the world, right? Like, what's possible for England? What's possible for America? What's possible for like this whole entire planet? Like, man, well, anything's possible if we can come together, right? We can come together and start, you know, loving each other and sharing ideas, et cetera, et cetera.
It's so important, this statement, because, you know, one of the biggest things you helped me with, as we, you know, I'll be very vulnerable here live, you know, with the whole, you know, George Floyd, you know, tragic murder previously. You know how much that rattled me, Mike Vacanti, and other people that did not share, you know, a black skin hue. Like, we were completely blown apart. And this guy on the screen took the time to answer our curious questions. Like, what does this actually mean for you? Like, we didn't realize what's been going on. Like, we were completely oblivious, but because we had someone like Cornell in our circle, we were able to ask him that curious question. And that conversation was, what, 2.5 hours? And there was no judgment. There was no upset. There was no right or wrong. It was literally just, this is where we are. This is what's going on. This is my view of the world. This is mine. What can we do from this? We'll take action then. And that's where those human conversations ignited from your kind gesture to spare 2.5 hours for a few of your curious friends who just happen to have white skin.
Yeah, but also your courage to ask the question. This is what people like dismiss, right? Like, yeah, I love you guys. Like, there's no problem for me answering that question. Like, we can talk. But in the day and age we live in right now, it really, like, people that don't look like me, they're afraid. They're afraid to answer because we are in a cancel culture, right? So it's like, if you ask something and it's deemed as ignorant, you might be canceled. Like, you might be attacked. So it takes courage to say, hey, you know what? Like, I do have a question. Do you mind if I ask? And for me, I have to realize that you're not me. So how could you possibly think like me, right? And unless I tell you how I'm thinking, right? Or tell you my perspective. And again, it's a two-way street in the conversation. It's not just me answering questions. It's you having the courage and the vulnerability to say, I don't know this thing, right? How do you feel about it from your perspective? And that conversation could have went for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. We could have kept talking, right? And like you said, no one is talking over anybody else. No one's yelling, screaming. Garry, I can't believe you don't know everything about Black culture. I don't know everything. I don't know 5% about Black culture. No Black person does, because it's so vast, right? And we're taught the wrong thing here where I live in our history book. So it's like, I think that there's beauty in the courage from you and the fact that we can sit down and talk. And if we say something that might not be like, you know, like, I don't know if I feel that way. All right, let's talk about it and have a conversation. So I love that day. I'll never forget that day. I'll never forget sitting on that Zoom and having that conversation. And after that conversation, and the only reason we ended the conversation is because I think I had a basketball clinic or something I had to go to. But and I was like, okay, guys, I really gotta go. But the thing I take away from that is the fact that we can all sit down. This is possible everywhere. We can all do this. Like, this isn't just because it's me and you. We can all do this. If you put your team flag down, right? Stop flying your team flag, and you sit down and say, okay, let's have a conversation, right? I'm gonna take all my judgment, all this anger, all this emotion, take the emotion out of it, and let's just have a conversation. It's two individuals, right? Things can happen. Beautiful things can happen, right? Prior to contrary belief on TV, two people can actually have a conversation and disagree with each other and not hate one another afterwards.
I think this is so important. Now, I think if I bring this out now, like, you're an entrepreneur, I still work in corporate, as I say, but we both understand the world. Look what happened in the last 12 months. We had this big, crazy virus that nobody could see, but completely wiped across all of the world, right? How did we deal with that so quickly? Collaboration. Whatever your view of pharmaceuticals companies, there was a collaboration between companies for a common goal. And look how quickly we found a vaccine to try and help the world against that virus. What if we actually did that all of the time, instead of only on special try and save the earth occasions? What if we were always trying to develop products and ways of being and, you know, communities, just so that we can actually just live in a more healthy way, in line with nature systems, in community, without trying to rip each other shreds off each other? Like, that's possible, isn't it?
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, but you know what? I look at it in, we've had the pharmacy talk before, but it's like I look at it in two ways, right? Like, what if you look at Western and Eastern medicine, right? What if we didn't dismiss Eastern medicine and say, okay, well, these are just witch doctors, right? Like, what if we really sat down and say, okay, what's a way for us to go about this, the healthiest way to go about this? Can we do this in a natural way as well? What if it's not just about the dollar, right? Because, like, let's make no mistakes, it's about money, right? Like, we're talking about trillions of dollars. This whole virus thing has been, it's trillions of dollars. But imagine we sat down and just said, okay, let's do this for the betterment of humankind, right? And now, if they can do it, then anybody can do it, right? Like, the thing that the two groups that have the hardest time sitting down are, the political sides, right? The right and the left, or whatever it is in your country. But that's the hardest thing, because they have to be right. It's like two drunk children, right? That have to be right all the time, and they can't see any right on either side. And if you go across lines, then, man, you are a sellout. You are, what's wrong for you? You're racist. You're blah 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 blah. They're the word. Politics, honestly, they need to burn it and try to bring it back up again, because it's the worst. It's the most divisive thing, more than anything else. It's the most divisive thing on the planet. People think it's race. It's politics. Politics divide people more and quicker than anybody else. They say don't talk about politics in the holidays for a reason, because you'll have the worst holiday in your whole entire life. And I don't understand why those subjects are taboo. Like, I don't get why we can't sit down and say, well, my view is this, my view is this. I don't really see it that way. Well, I don't really see it that way either. Okay, well, if we can't come to a common ground, that's cool. It's like you saying, Cornell, like, I love the color red. And I'm like, well, I love the color yellow. And you're like, well, the color yellow sucks. And I'm like, well, the color red sucks, Gary. And then we have this big fight about the color red and the color yellow, while all this other stuff is going on in the world. It's like, how dumb, like, what a moronic discussion we're having, right? Like, this is what it is when I see people online yelling about politics, like typing all hard about politics, like, oh man, this is going to be a good one. SMH, exclamation point. I'm like, dude, man, you have kids. Like, go enjoy your kids. Like, go take them to this park or something. Like, chill out, bro.
I'm only laughing so much, right? When you actually distill it to yellow and blue, or two colors.
Yeah.
Like, suddenly you're into, oh my god, this really is insane. Like, literally fighting over a color. Like, when you distill it down, like, it's
silly.
I've literally got tears. I've literally got tears. It's so bad.
But it's like, if we're questioning, right? Like, why? Like, why can't we see this? I think most of us are intelligent enough to see how stupid this is. The stuff that we fight over, like skin tone, right? Like, we fight over skin tone. Like, literally, it's our skin tone's our skin tone where we migrated. Like, it's just dumb, right? Like, to fight over, like, politics, right? Like, to have the 99% fight and the 1% just hang out like this. Oh man, in this episode of The World's Going to Hell, let's watch these guys fight. Like, it's like the fact that we just continue to fight, like, every generation, every 100 years, when the world gets recycled, the next generation, because they're doing the same things their parents did, they just recycle the hate, recycle the ignorance, recycle all these things. Man, I would love for love to be recycled, gratitude, empathy. I would love for those things to be recycled and passed down. That then the world starts to change, and then action starts to happen. We've got a lot of this. We got a lot of people that freaking talk and they don't do a damn thing, right? Like, love is an action word, right? Empathy, gratitude, like, those are action words for me. Like, right? Those are things that you move to do. If I love you, I'm gonna give you a hug. If I love, I'm gonna show you action. If I have gratitude, I'm gonna let you know that I'm grateful. If I have empathy, I'm not gonna just say, oh, I feel sorry for you, Gary. No, I'm gonna reach out and contact you, Gary. How are you doing, buddy? Like, do you need anything? Like, these are all action words, right? Like, they're verbs, right? We have to stop using them as nouns, right? They're verbs, right? We have to, like, actually start putting the work into these words and passing them on.
And I think that's just so relevant for every part of our lives. We're whole human beings. So, like, how do we show more care to ourselves, to our family, to our neighbor? Like, and that's where I think it starts. And I'm as guilty. Like, the amount of connection to our local community we have the last 12 months since the pandemic. way more than before. I used to just walk past people, even myself. You know, and now we're actually, my wife's helping a 90-year-old. She has done for over 18 months now. Helps get her shopping, connects with her every week, gets around. That's love.
Yeah.
That's connection.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's
just
beautiful.
a really simple example of somebody down the road. Yeah. I think we can all do that.
Yeah. Now, if the pandemic doesn't happen, those connections may not ever happen.
Exactly.
Right. So if people want to say like, oh, world's going to hell in a handbasket, blah, 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 there's nothing good that's out of it. Really? There's nothing good? Because that story is everywhere. That story is everywhere. Those stories are freaking everywhere. Where you go to the park and people are so sick of seeing a damn mask on someone's face. When you actually see someone smile, right? It's like, oh my God, I miss people smiling. Oh my God, I miss giving people a hug. You know, oh my gosh, I miss like that connection, that interaction. Right now, people are hopefully they understand that it's been taken away from us. It's been literally ripped away from us, right? So now that it's starting to come back, what are you going to do with it, right? Like, how much more are you going to appreciate those hugs, right? I don't let go of people, right? They're like Cornell, let go. I'm like, Like I've been hugging people since last March. Like I haven't changed. Like I don't stop hugging people, right? But it's like, there are people that are like, my gosh, I haven't seen my family in 8 months, 9 months, 10 months, 11 months, right? Now that you see them, what are you going to do about it?
As we look to wrap up, my friend, as always, I could grab hold of you for days. Let people know how they can follow up with you. As I say, you are a speaker, you are an author, you know, you support people with workshops. So how can people find you if they want to connect with you or potentially work with you, my friend?
I'm very easy to find on Instagram, Cornell Thomas 34, and on email, cornellthomas365@gmail.com. So very easy to read. And LinkedIn, obviously, I'm on. Any of the social media platforms, it's usually Cornell Thomas. It's not like Chocolate Baller 34, XOXO Heart, right? Like it's nothing crazy. It's just my name. And if you reach out, do not be surprised because I'm going to reach right back out to you. Don't be shocked like, oh, I said hi. He said hi back. Like I'm really about this conversation stuff. So don't think that I'm saying it because I'm on my man Gary's show. Like it's real. If you reach out to me, I'm going to hit you back.
Yes, Cornell is one literally in 1,000. And it's a genuine reply. Doesn't come with an upsell of the latest course or the 90-day course for $3,000. So
nice to meet you too. I have a coaching program called.
I'm only joking because I've done that in the past and it's horrific. I can remember how it felt when I did it, and I remember how that felt when I received it, and it's just horrible. So authentic, genuine connection. That's what this guy's all about. Thank you, Cornell. Cornell Super Thomas. Much love, my friend.
Love you, brother. Thank you.
Love you too. Take care.